The title of this panel is Biogdiversity, and it's kind of, I suppose this is kind of like the career guidance panel. You know, this is the sort of one where, you know, we're not really talking so much about, you know, like selling your music as opposed to selling yourself. I know that sounds really kind of a little bit kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Salacious, but we're selling ourselves here in a way that all the people on the panel have what the academics call portfolio careers, and that they do more than one thing. Like, I know some people think portfolio career is probably a nice way of saying jack of all trades and master of none, but portfolio careers is probably the way most people in the music industry work, in that they don't do just one thing, they do many things, or over the course of their career they have done many things. I mean, from my point of view, it's like it's the first person to mention portfolio careers to me is a guy called Michael Murphy. He lectures out in Dunleary, Dunleary Institute of Art and Design, and it's a way of kind of, like, I suppose, encompassing so many things. They share certain themes, but like it's different things. Like in my case, I'm a journalist, I'm a DJ with Phantom. I also kind of like host panels like this and discussion panels like Banter. And all the people on the panel, they're all involved in the music industry, but they do different things within the industry. And just what I want to do during this conversation is just kind of, I suppose, talk about how they ended up juggling these balls and how they keep those balls from falling down. I think the best thing to do is to maybe start with kind of Ken at the end. You talk all the way through about what they actually do right now, and like, you know, we'll start with that, and then we'll kind of open it up. And then what we're going to do is probably talk for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll open up to questions from the floor. Ken?
How you doing? My name is Ken Allen. I run Faction Records, which has also morphed into Faction Management. I manage James Vincent McMorrow, sporadically release records on Faction Records, which would be Fred and Director, and I also book C sessions. So again, I think that there's it's a busy job, but it's the way you actually have to do it, and then a lot of these things also complement each other. So if you're managing an act, I don't have to necessarily wait for a record label to come along to release a record. I can put it out myself and start generating that buzz. So that's my introduction. Cool.
Natalia, who actually proves the kind of, I suppose, the value of what we're talking about in terms of portfolio careers, and that he was on a panel yesterday as well, so he's back again for more today.
Yeah, hi again. I'm Nathaniel Gravely from the States. I run indie music blog with my partner back home, Connor. It's called I Guess I'm Floating, started in 2005. That kind of led to us starting a small record label back in October of last year called Small Plates Records. And then the beginning of this year, I started a gig at MTV working in digital music strategy. So those are my 3 plates that I'm currently spinning. Hopefully none fall and break. But I'm doing pretty good so far, I think.
Cool. Thank you. Steve?
How you doing? I'm essentially a music publisher, but I also manage a couple of people. Ken McHugh, who has been up on this stage in the guise of a band called Automata, and also has a new band called I'm Your Vinyl. I've been helping him put out records on his label called Left Hand Records for the last few years. So I've been acting as a label in that sense. And then I actually do a bit of music supervision as well in films and TV and stuff like that. So it's kind of very varied, and I suppose we'll get down to the detail of how I balance and spin all the plates.
Thank you very much. Lisa?
Hiya, I'm Lisa Paulin. I organize the Camden Crawl Festival. That's pretty much mainly what I'm doing these days, but it kind of was a long evolution out of playing in bands, then working for record labels, managing bands, doing PR, doing an independent label, promoting gigs, and this has been kind of a constant thread that's evolved and now has become a full-time career for me. And now currently also launched a comedy festival last year and looking to do other events coming up next year as well.
Grant, so like as you can hear from those snapshots, you know, all the panelists, it's diverse, but I suppose in many ways it's a bit like a Venn diagram, in that like the large circle is music, and everything inside that kind of like, it supposed joins up in a way. You know, maybe let's talk a bit how we ended up in those situations. You know, which came first, and was the case that you found yourself, say Ken, in your case, you know, did you find yourself? I mean, I came across you first of all as an A&R man and with Faction Records. So like maybe talk a bit like how you ended up finding yourself managing someone and then like doing the C sessions as well.
Well, I'll take you back further. Which I got my first job was in Hot Press magazine, and which was running events, and part of running the events was the Heineken Green Energy Band Challenge, Bacardi Band Challenge. So I used to put that together, vet some of the bands. That led to me having a lot of conversations with the record labels in the UK, looking for tips of who would be good and stuff like that. And while I was working in the hot press, I got a job for Independiente Records as a scout. And again, that was one of those things where I thought when I was a scout, I'd have the power to sign bands, and then I realized quite quickly you actually don't. You have to get your boss over and then his boss over before you do it. And then I left Hot Press and I took up a job in running the factory studios. Moved from Independiente Records to Polydor Records, and I did some work with that. And again, that was going to a lot of gigs, trying to see bands, running the studios. I mean, they all kind of fed into each other. You see a good band in the studio, you call up, the A&R manager, this guy's good, you should come and see him and stuff like that. And then, which led me to set up Faction Records, because I was a scout for a period of about 4 years, never actually signed anything to any of those labels, missed loads.
But that's also a lucky escape, because you might have signed an act who didn't do well, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, that's true too. But there was people who was close to, the Thrills back in the day, Alan Cullivan's band, and that was actually kind of funny because at the time, Independiente were, a label that the lads absolutely really loved, and the A&R person that they sent over to meet them had just signed So Solid Crew. And he was just literally, talking to the lads about hip hop, and I was just like, okay, right,
it didn't wash.
Yeah, it didn't wash, and then from doing the factory, then I left the factory, set up a management company because there was some of the bands that I liked I put out, and then I realized actually I could manage these guys as well. So director signed to Atlantic, and I'd set that up with another friend of mine, and that progressed me into management. And then I got chatting to some guys. I went to a festival a few years ago up in Donegal. Thought it was an amazing festival. Got chatting to them. They wanted a booker, and I said, yeah, I'll try that.
Yeah, and it's something that, if each one of the panelists went through it like that, there'd be similar stories told about how, I suppose, opportunities came and you went for it. And it's something, I suppose, that a lot of people out there are probably kind of going okay, they're listening to me and Ken's story, and they're kind of okay, he had conversations with people, but had he got the experience? Do you find, and you can pick this up, do you find as well that that sometimes experience isn't necessary as much as enthusiasm and knowing what's going on? That when you're starting out, that if you, for example, Tyler, you never ran a record label before Small Plates came along. So it was the case of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I think so a bit. There was a big wave, I guess last year was the beginning, when music blogs that have been around for a while, about 5 or 6 years, had started to start their own record labels, like these small independent 7-inch releases on vinyl. And it was just kind of like this popular wave where one blog after another started falling in line, and not to say that we followed suit, but we followed suit. It was just a natural kind of progression after you're doing something for so long and writing about bands that are emerging and kind of being the AR for other labels in a sense, that for us just to put it out ourselves. And, we're supporting these bands top to bottom on our site and pretty much, promoting them as much as we can, so why not just publish their stuff? So that was kind of a right place at the right time thing, I think, for sure.
And Steve, in your case, you used to have a proper job, as in you used to be employed by Island Music, full time, right?
Even before that, I worked for.
I'm sorry if you used the word proper job.
As
I said proper job, I went,
I used to get a pay slip at the end of every month.
That's it, yeah.
I started in my proper job at Warner Chapel back in the 80s. But the one thing I remember was my dad saying many, many years ago, he said, if you can find a job that you like doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And I've never worked a day in my life. So, it's kind of important. The enthusiasm is really important, and what gets you up in the morning. But the fact is that it is possible to take control and actually make a living out of this business. You don't actually. Enthusiasm, only goes so far. You then have to translate that into, business decisions and, being smart and knowing what you're doing. And I suppose that's what we're talking about here, but getting into all that kind of stuff. But going back before I had a proper job, working for a major company, I got into the music industry as a band member. I was in a band way back in the 70s. And we were lucky enough to be good enough to get signed by Warner Brothers Records. Nothing really significant happened with the band, but we did get a chance to make albums, and we did get a chance to tour, and we got a chance to, you know, obviously spend, you know, enjoy a lot of the experience that way back then, you know, major record companies would pump a lot of money into a band. And so I saw from the band's perspective, you know, the music industry. We signed a publishing deal, we signed a record deal, we signed a deal with an agent that would get us the gigs. We signed a deal with the manager. So I got to see pretty much all of those main facets of the music industry, and it was, as I say, from a band's perspective, it was very interesting. You know, and at the time, I knew it was a learning process, and we made mistakes, and all of the people that we were signed to made mistakes, and it was an interesting thing. And I knew, sitting in the back of a van for hours and days and months on end, you know, this was I was paying my dues. But I think if anyone here is in a band, that's essentially the best position to be in to learn, and then you get to see, you know, and it's a wonderful period of time that we're in now, because bands really are in the driving seat. You know, the artists, let's put it that way, it doesn't have to be a band. You really are in the driving seat, and you are the ones that do control what gets put out on iTunes or what gets pressed, or what, you know, how you interact with the you know, the media and the press, radio, whatever. So you know, that's where I got my grounding. Yeah. And I then just happened to get into publishing. Just basically because I saw an A&R guy, I thought, what a cushy job that guy's got.
Yeah, I have to say, you know, like if there's certain jobs. I mean, this is something we kind of said earlier on, that if there was one job you could actually take and do it full time, because, you know, it's one thing about like juggling careers, and we're going to talk about this a bit as well. Is like juggling careers is hard. It's easier if you've got one paycheck coming in. You know, would anyone here on the panel, would they give it all up for one job and what that would be? And earlier on, it was kind of like, yeah, a booking agent, but from my point of view, it would have been an A&R man, you know, in a way, because it was, what a cushy number, you know, what a really cushy number. But let's talk a bit maybe then about like juggling stuff. You know, I mean, these, you know, you, like from your point of view, I mean, you were kind of talking earlier on about like last year you were working with various event companies, and this, like, I mean, now you're doing the Camden Crawl full time. You know, when you look back at stuff you've done, I mean, does the juggling get easier or harder the more plates you have? That's a good question.
It definitely
it's a good question, actually. Yeah.
It definitely gets a lot harder. I mean, I think like Camden Crawl was always a hobby for me. It was the result of actually trying to find an outlet for the acts that we were promoting on. I had a little independent label, and I was also running Sub Pop in London for their European office, and we just weren't having the outlets to actually put the bands on. It was kind of mid-90s Britpop. There was really only kind of two real new music outlets, being MTV2 and excuse me, and the NME. And so basically, there weren't that many gig opportunities, and so we actually started doing this as a hobby, as a route to actually get people to come and see our bands. But that then kind of stuck, and I had to continue doing that year on year while I was also putting out records as well. And then along the way, you start meeting bands, and then you want to take them on, and then you start managing a band. So all of a sudden, you're doing 3 different careers in one, and it is difficult to juggle, but it's the passion that kind of drives that, and you find it easier the more that you learn.
Do we reckon, like, I mean, is this something that's a fairly modern phenomenon, Ken? You know, is this, like, you know, I'm trying to think back years and years ago, like, I'm trying to think, most people I knew were just doing one thing. If you're a manager, you're a manager. If you're a record label, you're a record label, and that was it. Do you think, I mean, a lot of diversification has come around because the money pie is just much smaller, and, like, you know, it's cut up so much that if you want to make a living, like Steve was saying earlier on, you have to do different things? Yeah,
well, I think the important thing to remember is that the Irish music business is really small, so I don't think there's really an opportunity for you just to do one thing. And then maybe in the UK, going back years ago, there was because it was a much bigger market, there was a lot more money, there were more defined roles that, you know, people could just be a publisher, an A&R man, and do that. But most of the people that I've met, it tends to be that, like, you know, an A&R man got into it because he was a promoter and he saw some good bands, and then he ended up signing a band, and he becomes a manager, and he does. I think it's the nature of the game that you tend to take on a lot of different projects.
To be honest, it's pretty much everyone I've ever met in the music industry, and especially journalists. Well, not journalists actually, but everybody else.
We're above everything, you know?
Everybody else has been in a
sound.
band, except for journalists. They just want to be in a band.
Oh! let me put on the record that I never in my life want to be in a band. My God, I mean, this is one thing we said earlier on. You know, rock and roll has got to be the most unglamorous career of all. You know, let's kind of lay that shibboleth to rest once and for all. And also, I never ever want to be in a band. You know, ever. Let's get that straight. You're all witnesses to this. But look, just something you like. I mean, you said there, Lisa, and like you were saying there, Ken. It's like that idea of juggling things. How? In terms of prioritizing something, you know what I mean? It's like, is it very obvious, you know, that when you're a manager and you're a record label and you're booking C sessions, for example, something takes over. I mean, if James Vincent McMorrow in the morning, you know, suddenly gets an Australian tour, is that going to take up all your attention? And if so, as certain things take up all your attention, how do you keep the other people happy? You know, how do you keep your other projects on the go?
Well, I suppose there's certain defined times of the year. Let's say C-Sessions Festival happens in June, so I know, for example, a couple of months before that it's going to be intense. With James, you're looking at like his release schedule was in March, and you try and work those things around. I think at the start it can be chaotic, especially because it's one person managing a lot of different projects. But at the same time, as James is becoming more successful, you have an opportunity to get an agent on board and maybe get a tour manager on board that takes some of the stresses of what you're trying to do all at once away from you. So yes, it is very difficult to juggle it at times, but we manage to do it. Yeah. Haven't been fired yet.
I think the spinning of the plates gets easier as you go on. You learn where to like turn the flame up on certain things and where to like turn it down. Like for me right now, the website is it's been going on for a while. It's kind of self-sustaining, and like it's just a natural outlet for me. It doesn't take that much time to maintain anymore, so now I can kind of focus on my MTV job or focus on the label that needs to be promoted because it's brand new. Another thing too is like, you know, we book gigs in New York sometimes, and I booked them in my hometown back in Kentucky before I moved. And like South by Southwest, we do a big thing at CMJ too called Floating Fest. It's a big like all-day party we do, and the first time around, I was never more stressed in my life. I'd never really booked a gig before, and it's just like, you know, you're booking 6 bands, and you're talking to agents, you're talking to managers, you're getting backline, all this stuff that I had really no experience with, and I could have read all the books in the world, but it's the experience of booking that like first time through that made like the 3 and 4 after like walks in the park. So I mean, the experience you get from juggling all these things helps, like, you know, doing the website helps me do MTV stuff, doing MTV stuff helps me do the label stuff. They all feed off each other.
Just someone maybe like Steve or Lisa on this one. Like, we're all talking about different kind of careers here, different kind of things. And in years gone by, one person would have done all that thing. Is it a case maybe that some people may well be thinking this in the room, that like, oh, well, you know, they're being a bit greedy, you know, leave it back, you know, like, I mean, if you're going to do one thing, just do that and do it well. Like, or is it a case that we find that, particularly in the music industry, that it doesn't apply, the same rules don't apply, that you really have to kind of do, as you said earlier on, Steve, about making a living, you have to do all these things, because the amount of money you get from management, it's like, I mean, it could be like 20% of nothing to start off with, but you have to bring something else in, you know?
I mean, I've worked with record labels for years, and I suppose I've done pretty much every job there is going. And I think one of the important things that I learned is from, you know, working on the PR and on the marketing side, but then also working on the recording side, also, you know, producing the records, like literally manufacturing. To be able to learn all those different disciplines is really useful for when you want to take it forward and be able to do this yourself instead of assigning it to other people to be able to do that. So I think it's really important to actually change roles. I don't necessarily agree that, I don't think I am very good at juggling, and in fact, just last year I was doing an independent marketing company that I set up 10 years ago after leaving Polydor, and I literally decided that I did not have the time to actually manage 2 companies going in completely different directions. but they both, but they all of my experience, kind of one thing led on to another, but the experience over the last 20 years has given me a more fuller approach to be able to do what I do, whatever I choose to do.
You know, as Ken said before, it's the music industry in Ireland is tiny, and you know, I've been based here now for 10 years, and I just have to have lots of irons in the fire because it's such a small business, and you know, the music industry, you know, record sales have been declining, nosediving over that last 10, 15 years in any case. So you don't, one of the reasons I'm involved so much with placing music into films and ads and TV and stuff like that is because there's no money to be made, well, not much money to be made out of record sales unless you are a major artist. And so, you know, just to make a living, and using my experience that I've built up over the years enables me to do that plate spinning and, you know, do it relatively effectively. But I think I think if any of us, you know, has an artist that suddenly takes off, goes you know, through the roof, we would find ourselves very focused very quickly. And you know, Paul McGuinness is, I'm sure he doesn't think much about you know, any other principal management business on a daily basis other than you two. It's probably like 10 seconds or somebody else.
Jesus, poor PG Harvey, you know.
Well,
but then again, we can actually see that. I'm sure if we asked Paddy Casey, this is kind of total diversion, but I'm sure if we asked Paddy Casey about his experience with principal management, you know, and he was kind of, well, maybe I could have went with someone else, you know.
yeah.
Actually, let's kind of part that one, because let's not get into bashing Paul McGuinness, because do that elsewhere.
I've got great respect for the guy. He's very good.
I think you started it yesterday now.
No, let's start. There's a question actually that comes to mind, and I suppose it's kind of based on the next panel, the free agenda panel. Is that, like, do you take on work for free? I mean, do you find yourself work for free to start for something in order to kind of build that experience? Yeah, I'm looking at the looks here and the nods. Like, is this part of it? Is this something that we accept, that we do things for free because we never know where it's going to lead?
When I launched the marketing company, we were building street teams and developing social network communities for bands right at the beginning, and literally everything I took on was free. To you know, build a reputation, it was like starting again, and so I think you do have to be able to be prepared to do that.
And this is after like a lot of experience you have at Sub Pop, at major labels like Polydor. You still took it on for free.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I left, I was a marketing manager at Polydor when I left, and literally I had to start again and build all those build those relationships up.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if I get involved with somebody on a publishing side of things, you know, my deals are such where I don't advance any money. So as soon as somebody signed an agreement with me, I'm working effectively for nothing until such time as that material I'm able to place in a film, or you know, there's something happens. The band is out, or the artist is out and about gigging, and there might be a bit of IMRO coming in. So yeah, effectively until that stream starts, I'm doing it for nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's called management, actually, working for free, to be honest with you. And there's so many, like, I mean, it's so difficult. Most acts, even signed acts, don't make any money. And, you know, and then if you're working on an independent artist, generally they don't make any money in the first couple of years, at least, you know. And if you make some money, you have a good show, you sell out here, you make a couple of €1,000, you end up putting that back into something else, you know. And from my point of view, maybe there's no point, when there's no money at that point, to be taking commissions off bands, you know. So yes, I would work for free for a long period. In fact, friends who are working in different industries look at it and go, "You're completely nuts. What are you doing?"
Yeah, it was more than free, actually. I think the first few years that I ran the website, it was actually more like losing money, spending more to keep it alive than you were actually making off of it. I mean, it all worked out in the end, but I mean, I would also be lying. I don't think any of us got into this industry because we wanted to make a lot of money. And we got into it because we love it, and that's what we know, and it's what we're good at, and we'll sit here and probably, like I said, lose money for a couple of years in order just to keep going. So yeah, I mean, free to lose money in that little range, that's about right.
And like, final question before we throw it out to the floor, do we ever see, any of you ever see a day when, like, you will cast off everything else and concentrate on one thing and one thing only? Or is this the way this industry is going? That if anyone out there is interested in working off stage with bands, that they better kind of like realize that, one, there's not much money in it, two, Ireland's a very, very small music market, and three, you better get a couple of hats besides the one hat you're wearing at the moment?
I actually enjoy the diversity of it, to be honest, and I think because I'm very old, I've built up a huge amount of baggage, good baggage, information, knowledge, experience, and I'm quite happy to be where I am now, because I think if I'd stayed in London and stayed just as a publisher, I'd probably be people say I'm a boring person now, but I'd be even more boring if I was just the jack of one trade. Yeah, no, I think I enjoy it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. You got to cast a net wide and far, and I think having as many plates in the air as possible is good. And plus, with the digital space occupying everything today and being so connected with tablets and smartphones, it's just second nature to really be that tethered to so many different career paths, if you will. Yeah. So I mean, it's easier too with all that stuff. I think we're always connected. People are always emailing, with Twitter and Facebook. It makes that stuff a lot easier to manage, I think, as well. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, do you see a day coming maybe when, C Sessions has turned into New Oxygen and that takes up all your time?
That's
a curveball.
Yeah, perhaps, you never know. But I, again, like all the people on the panel, I enjoy the diversity of it, and again, it's like they all do feed into each other. As Steve said, if something blows up in a major fashion, and I'll just maybe buy festivals as opposed to and employ people to book them as opposed to anything else. I don't know, but I think I will. Yeah. Even the point that you made about Paul McGuinness, like Paul McGuinness, yes, it's principal management, but he's into a lot of other things as well. Yeah,
a lot of our businesses. Lisa, are there big plans, expansion plans for the Camden Crawl, or do you tend to do more stuff outside of that?
I'm actually looking at doing
Are you accusing me of being Vincent Brown here? Or something? That's a trick question.
I'm actually looking at doing an event in Dublin. That's kind of why I'm here. So,
Right, very good. And is that going to happen in 2012?
We're looking to actually kind of, very much like a kind of Reading Leeds sort of situation, or V Stafford and Chelmsford is doing Camden Crawl and doing Dublin on the same weekend, kind of sharing, but making it a very much an Irish-owned festival. But then also sharing in the pool of acts that are doing Camden Crawl as well.
Okay, so that's what May next year?
Yeah, we're looking at May next year, bank holiday.
Right, there's an exclusive for you all now. Steve's all work coming out today.
Now you put me on record. now I'm going to have to do it.
Excellent. So there also proves how someone with a portfolio career like me can get an exclusive story out of a panel like this on a Saturday afternoon. Okay, we're going to throw it out to the floor now. So if you've any questions at all about what you've just heard, or maybe anything else that came to mind when you read the panel spec, just put your hand up. We'll get a microphone to you, and the panel here will answer the question. Just put a hand up. Any hands? Any hands at all?
What are most
Excellent,
people?
We're finished.
I'm curious what most people here are interested in.
How many people in here are in bands? How many people in here want to be involved with, say, management or promotion or agency? How many sad suckers in here are involved in the media in some sort of way or want to be involved in media? Okay. But just a question for you. When you come in here today, did you actually realize that most people involved in the music industry right now juggle things? That there are managers and they're promoting concerts and they're also involved in record labels. Did you realize that? Was this aware of it, or have we kind of given you new information? I know I sound like a career guidance teacher when I say that. Don't be shy. You're very shy. Hang on a second, just get the microphone, because
I've started to know, maybe the last 1 or 2 years, I've started to figure that out. But yeah, this kind of just is an example of kind of proving it more, that it's, you're literally hearing it from people saying that's actually the way. It's
It's,
the way it
like,
goes.
it's something else to kind of, I suppose, take away. And this is something that, like, when Ken was talking earlier on, I suddenly realized that, Jesus, yeah, that it used to be always that, like, have you got enough experience to do something? It's not a case anymore of having that kind of experience. It's even not a case of having nick or being arrogant enough. It's just kind of like having a go at it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think also that, you know, if you're in a band, if you want things to progress, or a solo artist, you're obliged to to do the plate spinning, to know what's going on. If you want to, get some records pressed up to sell at gigs, or get up on iTunes, or get your songs registered with IMRO. These are all very, very different things, and it's hugely important. There's no reason why you guys can't make some money out of this. You know what I mean? You don't have to do it just purely for the love of it.
What struck me is, excuse me, I've spoken to loads of bands since I've been here this weekend, and there's been one thread that I found really interesting, in that most people refer to needing to get a manager and needing to get a booking agent and needing other people to do these things for them, and I think that's kind of back to front. I think if you're going to be a successful artist, you need to experience these things yourself and do them yourself. So when you actually do delegate those responsibilities to somebody else, that you actually know that they're doing their job, and you need to have control of your own career and your own destiny. So I think the ways to do that is put yourself out there. Go and do work experience. Go and take every opportunity you can to try doing different things, whether it's working at a gig venue, working at a booking agent, working for a record label, working for a website. It's all valuable experience to learn how things work.
It's also come back to something like Steve said earlier on, that you remember as well that, I'm sorry kind of bursting everyone's balloon, but 95% of the bands who played Hard Work Class Heroes this weekend will be gone in 5 years. And if you're a member of that band and you still want to work in the music industry, you got to do like Steve did and actually just learn the stuff as you go along, learn about how venues work, learn about how promoters work, learn about agents, learn about record labels, learn about what's coming after record labels. And I've come across so many ex-band members who are now involved in the industry, I'm thinking of one of the Shrills, for example, you mentioned earlier on. He's now managing that great band Little Green Cars, and like a band, say, then there's probably a perfect example of a band who actually went on, their post-career almost was more successful than their career was something happens,
Paul McGuinness in a band?
Yeah, Paul McGuinness was in a band, he managed a band called Spud. That was his first managing, but Something Happens, for example, were a big Irish band in the 80s. The lead singer is now a News Talk DJ. The guitar player makes, Ray Harmon does various kind of music, like he makes music for TV stuff. Ted Eamon, the drummer, is now a really well-regarded production manager around the country. And the guitarist, whose name escapes me, is now a music supervisor on The Late Late Show. Alan, he now books bands for TV shows. Yeah, he went from booking the bands to be producing, and that's what's kind of like showing, like the post-band careers. You can kind of learn the stuff right now. Question from the guy over in the grey T-shirt.
How you doing? My name is Niall. I'm here on behalf of Paul McGuinness and Principal Management. I'm just kidding. I basically just started into just kidding, man. Your face, that was worth it. Just.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
I just started into management, just managing a young indie band called Soldiers Can't Dance, and I'm glad to hear that other managers here that I'm not the only one flying by the seat of my pants. It's very much a day-to-day thing, so literally right at the start, green, learning as I go. There's a lot of talk about bands doing it themselves in terms of putting out albums themselves, and the difficulty in getting signed because there's less and less labels now. So would Ken or anyone else have any advice in terms of, are you better off to build up a bit of a CV, get a couple of EPs out there, keep writing, get improve, get into the studio and improve as much as you can and put yourself in front of record labels, or are you better off maybe looking at the DIY route?
I'm a great believer in doing it yourself, and then when the time comes and you create that buzz, the record labels, the agents and people will find you, ultimately it is a business, so the record labels want to make money out of it, and so do the agents and all that sort of stuff. So, and because the budgets aren't there anymore from the record labels to develop the acts, it is up to the manager and the bands themselves to develop outside of the record label and almost like that business side of it. But on the flip side of it, it gives you a much stronger position, because if you're starting to sell out a lot of venues and you're doing well and you've sold 1,000 CDs on your own, suddenly you've got something that people are interested in, and you can get a better deal than you would do if you walked in off the street with like 4 good demos and no fan base. So I would definitely recommend you do that. The other thing I would say, like, just if you're a young manager, there's very few managers around, especially in Ireland and stuff like that, and never be afraid to contact anyone within the business. Most people are generally very open to meeting people and having conversations and talk to them about your experiences and your difficulties, and they usually have a good take on it, because...
And you also be a member of the Music Managers Forum as well.
Yeah, and they do really good training courses as well and stuff like that.
That's kind of like something as well, that talk about training courses, you know, that now, compared to when I was starting out in music in like the late 80s, early 90s, there was nothing like this. You didn't have a Hard Working Class Heroes convention where you had panelists with this kind of caliber of experience, and the caliber of experience they had all weekend, talking for free about their experience, about what they do and how they do it. Like, you know, I remember there was a Hot Press convention in 1990, and it was the best thing I've ever been to. I remember just feeding my brain over a whole weekend. It was just incredible. But now there's so many things like this. There's like the courses, the MMF organised, IMRO organised courses. There's Hard Working Class Heroes. There's so much things, and like a lot of them are free, because, you know, in the case of this thing, I mean, we can put on this panels here free because of Culture Ireland, you know, and the Arts Council. Like that's kind of like, I mean, your tax dollars working for you in a way. And like, I would advise anyone involved in the music industry, be it as a writer, be it as a manager, be it as a kind of like a would-be artist, that if you have the time to go to these things and just feed your brain, because this is where you learn stuff. I mean, this is the equivalent of kind of like a false course in, you know, music business this weekend, you know, except none of us are claiming outlandish expenses are going to Florida for the weekend. Any other questions? Over here, lady over here.
I just wanted to ask, do you have any suggestions on tools for the trade to make the juggling easier, whether it be in music or anything else? Like, what are things that you'd say are your go-to resources that you need to have sorted for yourself?
Good hand-to-eye coordination, probably.
Google is your friend. Google is your friend.
I actually, I mean, one of the things, I mean, it's not going to be applicable to Ireland per se, but one of the things that I've noticed a lot is that, you know, when we have, you know, people coming in doing internships with us, one of the things that people are severely lacking is actually really good organizational skills in terms of time management, and just things like, you know, really knowing, having an in-depth knowledge of Excel and basic accounting skills is really, really useful. So, I mean, I think there's like definitely practical sides. You know, I stupidly studied to be an accountant and then ended up in the music business, which, you know, is seriously the stupidest thing I've ever done. But
I think it gives you a head start when you're looking at royalty statements, you know?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I do my day-to-day bookkeeping myself, but it is really useful to understand budgeting. It's really useful to actually have really good, strong computer skills. Things just, you know, to this day, I wish I knew HTML, and I don't, because I'm always in a flap trying to find somebody to do mailers for me and build banners and just little things that are really useful when you're actually building all your web tools and trying to do lots of things at the same time.
I mean, I think one of the important tools is probably like it's probably an intuitive tool that, like, just be friendly, and actually don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to kind of like find my email and like email me with a question you think I might be able to answer. 9 times out of 10 I won't be able to answer it, because it's like I don't have any kind of degree in brain science. But like there are times when, you know, we will help you. I mean, I've rarely come across cases of people who won't help you, who just they'll find it might take them a day or two to get back to you, or a week or two to get back to your email. But like, if they can help you, they will, or they'll point you in the right direction. You know, most people are friendly. Most people are nice. 99% of the human race are nice people, you know, and they will get back to you. And that's something I kind of found with the music and media industries, more the music industry than the media industry in many ways, that people will take the time to help newbies. They will kind of like, provided you don't be stupid, provided you like don't ask ridiculous questions or demand stupid things. In that case, you're just going to delete the email. But like, you just be common sense and just ask questions. That's one of the best. That's one of the best tools. And everything's on the internet. Absolutely everything's on the internet, including this session next week.
I think you're absolutely right about having some basic skills and knowledge of VAT, how that works. Is it's just boring, but it's essential. Also, getting your head round a few legal principles as well is really important, and that's where the MMF training things come in from time to time. And I've given a few talks on publishing and things like that. In fact, I'm always quite surprised at how many people don't understand the difference between compositions and recordings. And it's actually dead simple. If it's two different disciplines. One is a songwriter is one job, and actually recording and performing the song is a completely different job. So, but a lot of people get the two things mixed up and get confused as to what IMRO does compared to PPI and things like that. Just getting your head around those sorts of things are really, really crucial. Yeah, well, this is IMRO and PPI equivalent to PRS and PPL, in the UK. So it's and
as well as that, I mean, like, your library will be able to order books for you as well, and there are books which are worth reading about the music business, like stuff by Donald Passman, people like that. You can always kind of like get the Motley Crue dirt and enjoy that one, but there are books which will actually give you information about what's there, and you get the up-to-date ones. The information is all out there. It's just a case of finding it. Okay, I think time for one more question. If there's one more question on the floor. Grant. Oh, one lady over here.
Hello, I've got a question for Ken and Lisa maybe. At what point did you decide to move from performing artists? I mean, how long did you trudge at that before you moved on to another game? And did you leave the performing artist because you felt you weren't going to achieve your goal, or did something else take your fancy? It's a cruel question, but I'm genuinely interested to, how long do you... Steve,
what do you mean?
As a performer, yeah, sorry, but...
Yeah, it was just failure was the main impetus. It's true. I mean, I was in a couple of bands. One band made 3 albums for Warner Brothers, and then I was in another band after that, which I thought, okay, I've made all the mistakes, I've learnt everything, and I'm going to be in the Beatles next, And we made a couple of albums and had a couple of singles, and I got on Top of the Pops once, and thank you, yeah. And that was essentially the height of it, and after that I realized actually I didn't want to be, I wasn't bothered about being on the stage, so I thought I'll try my hand at being a producer, and whatever, it didn't pan out like that either. So it was complete and utter failure, and hanging out with people in the music industry, as I said before, you'd come across these A&R guys, and I thought, what a great job that is. I know a bit about music now, I could do that. It was just as simple as that. And once I was lucky enough to, I actually phoned up Warner Chappell, and I said, I hear there's a job going. And I didn't know anything about it. I just phoned him up on the, and he said, "Oh yeah, how do you know about that?" Oh, some friend has told me. So I got the job, and the rest is hysterical. Yeah.
For me, it was a little less. You haven't heard me play bass, but I was in 2 different bands, each of which made independent records, and I think that what I learned kind of going through it was that I was actually much more passionate about promoting bands rather than actually being in it. It was something I did want to do, but then I kind of found I kept taking over like more of the managerial jobs and writing the press releases and organizing photos and getting involved with the artwork, and I just really started being really fascinated with that stuff, and it was a natural progression. And I was I was just playing gigs, working in a nightclub as a cocktail waitress and going to school, and ended up getting a job helping a promoter just literally calling up record labels, getting in posters, and I was an assistant. And I befriended somebody on the phone in New York. I was living in Chicago at the time. And I just had a really great phone relationship with this record label. And then they asked me to come out to interview. So I kind of dropped everything, got a flight to New York, did the job interview, and they actually gave me the job right there and then. And because of that, I just stopped being in bands and moved to New York, and it kind of started from there. It was nothing I ever planned, because yeah, sure, I would have loved to have been a rock star, but it was never meant to be, really.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much for turning up, and thanks so much to the panelists. That was a really cool panel.